It's hard to separate the physical and mental toll that the longest season in NBA history took on the Los Angeles Lakers, who had only 60 days between Game 6 of the NBA Finals in 2020 and their first preseason game on December 11th. The lack of a true offseason kept this team from truly defending their title this year. With LeBron James and Anthony Davis combining to miss half the season, the Lakers ended up with the 7th seed, and they actually were in control of the series against the Phoenix Suns after going up 2-1. But the injury to Anthony Davis was the nail in the coffin for the Lakers' title hopes. I mean, you could argue that the Suns were still a better team, even if AD was healthy. But AD's versatility on both ends was needed for the Lakers to have any chance at beating a quality team in the playoffs. Their chemistry going into the postseason was not as good as it was before AD and LeBron went down. LeBron wasn't quite the same coming back from his high ankle sprain, and Dennis Schroeder missed a ton of games because of COVID protocols. After the performance of the Lakers' role players in the playoffs, many knew that changes needed to be made with this Lakers team. Everybody knows by now the story of Dennis Schroeder turning down an $80 million contract extension from the Lakers during the regular season. He actually had a good start to his Lakers career, and he looked like he could be the future point guard for the franchise. But after his awful play in the playoffs, the Lakers front office knew that he was not going to be the answer the team needed going forward. Schroeder is a good player, and he did have a great season in his last year in OKC, but he is not worthy of all-star money. So upgrading at that position was something the Lakers front office had as their number one priority this past offseason. But they really didn't have a lot of options to upgrade because of their salary cap situation. But the Lakers GM Rob Pelinka took a big swing on a star point guard. The Lakers wasted no time finding their guy. They made a deal just before the NBA draft started. The Lakers traded for the former MVP, Mr. Triple-Double, Russell Westbrook. Kyle Kuzma, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Montrezl Harrell, and the 22nd pick was just enough for the Lakers to acquire the former league MVP. Westbrook is finally coming home. As a kid in LA, Westbrook was a big-time Laker fan growing up, and his favorite player was always Magic Johnson. Considering the position the Lakers were in with their limited assets and cap space, this trade was a calculated risk. It's important for the Lakers to find a way to limit LeBron James' workload throughout the regular season. Let me remind you, he's going into his 19th season. Getting another ball handler was essential for the Lakers' title run next season. They needed someone who could consistently take his opponents off the dribble and score easy buckets. Someone who can run the offense from time to time. Russ can give you that. Even though he got off to a slow start with the Wizards last season, he got much more comfortable with his teammates after the All-Star break and lifted the Wizards to the last spot in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Russ gives the Lakers the type of energy in the regular season that they really haven't had in a long time. Whether you hate him or love him, there's no denying that Russ plays with 100% effort every night. He leaves everything out there on the court and plays his absolute heart out. LeBron has averaged at least 25 points per game every season of his career except his rookie year. That's 17 straight seasons averaging at least 25 points per game. But I feel that streak could be in jeopardy this season, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're the Lakers, you want to preserve LeBron as much as you can in the regular season going forward. That's why adding a player like Westbrook was very important for this team. The less of a load that LeBron has to carry, the better. AD has always been known to miss a lot of games in the past. You needed a player like Westbrook who can put the team on his back and lead them in the regular season from time to time. This will allow head coach Frank Vogel to rest AD and LeBron more often. You don't necessarily have to have them miss games, just lower their minutes per game throughout the regular season. With LeBron, Westbrook, and AD taking most of the cap room, the Lakers had to find quality role players willing to take less to join the team. It's the return of a lot of players that have worn a Laker jersey in their careers. Trevor Ariza, Dwight Howard, Rajon Rondo, Wayne Ellington, and Kent Bazemore will be making their return back to the purple and gold. And 3 of those players have won a ring with the franchise in their last year with the Lakers. And after all these years being linked to one another ever since they were drafted in 2003, LeBron and Carmelo Anthony finally ended up on the same team. Not an all-star team, not an Olympic team, but an NBA team. It's been a long time coming, and it almost looked like it was never going to happen. But the time is now. Carmelo has always had great chemistry with LeBron while playing on the Olympic team from 2004 to 2012. LeBron has always needed shooters around him, and that's what Melo can certainly bring at this stage of his career. He's become a really good spot-up shooter, shooting 41% from beyond the arc last season and 38% the season before. Anthony is past his prime and is a liability on the defensive end, but he can still create his own shot. And having another player who can average 10 plus points per game coming off the bench is always an advantage. Through his time in Portland, Melo has learned to accept his role coming off the bench, just like when Dwight Howard signed with this team in 2019. A lot of naysayers thought that Dwight was going to be more of a problem than anything, but he ended up embracing his role and being a key piece to the Lakers championship in 2020. That's what the Lakers got going for them. There are a lot of veterans on this team that are willing to sacrifice for the opportunity to win a ring. The Lakers have a lot of players on their roster that were drafted in the 2000s. Melo and LeBron was drafted in 2003, Rondo in 2006, Dwight Howard and Trevor Ariza in 2004, Westbrook in 2008, and Wayne Ellington in 2009. We've seen these guys play for a long time, so saying that this is an old team compared to the rest of the league is an understatement. This team currently has 8 players over the age of 30 and 5 players over the age of 35. But the thing is, LeBron is not your typical 36-year-old. And Russ plays with the energy of a player in their 20s. And you still have Anthony Davis still in his prime. That's the thing that some people forget when you look at the average age of this team. The way this team is constructed, none of the veteran players really have to play heavy minutes in the regular season, not even LeBron. You have a mixture of veteran players with a couple of young guys that have a lot to prove. The number one question that fans and experts ask about the Lakers after they made the Westbrook trade is, will there be enough shooting for this to work? I believe they do have enough shooting. And it would help even more if AD can get back to a respectable percentage from 3, unlike last season. Signing Malik Monk was one of the most underrated moves of the offseason. The Lakers will hope that his game continues to trend in the right direction after last season. He had somewhat of a breakout year in his last year with the Charlotte Hornets, in which he shot a career best 40% from three-point range and showed improvement on both ends of the ball. It's unclear whether Monk will start, but the 23-year-old guard should receive a lot of playing time, especially if he can hold his own defensively. He would be my choice to start in the backcourt alongside Westbrook. Players like Monk, Melo, Ellington, and Ariza will need to continue their efficiency from the previous year. Those are the guys that will be counted on the most to stretch the defense for this team to reach their full potential. Westbrook needs to stick to his mid-range game and attacking the basket, and keeping his three-point attempts very low, like around 1 or 2 threes per game. The Lakers should be a much better offensive team this season than last year's, but they probably won't be as good defensively as they were last year either. They were the best defensive team in the league last season, but the loss of players like Alex Caruso, KCP, and Dennis Schroeder will have an effect on their defense this upcoming season. But by how much? Will the Lakers still be a top 10 defense? Frank Vogel is a defensive head coach, one of the best in the business, and he has always had the knack of turning his teams into one of the best in the league. Players like Kendrick Nunn and Malik Monk are not known for what they do on defense, but they still are young and have a lot of potential to become better overall players. If you can give the effort and willingness to be coached, Vogel can help you to become a better defender. I believe the Lakers can be one of the best teams in the league, but Anthony Davis not only needs to stay healthy, but he needs to play like he did when the Lakers won the championship in 2020. The Lakers are banking on Davis having a major bounce-back season. In 2020, AD played like the best player in the league at times, dominating on offense from the inside and the outside, and being one of the best defenders in the league. AD was an easy top 5 player in 2020, but last year, he really didn't even look like a top 10 player. His numbers were down across the board, and that's unacceptable for a player of his caliber at his age. AD can make things a lot easier for everybody around him. The Lakers are hoping that AD can fix most of the Lakers' defensive issues by playing more at the center position and just being more available. If healthy, AD has the potential to not only win Defensive Player of the Year, but also the league MVP. A high ankle sprain is a tough injury to come back from. It usually takes around 2 to 3 months to fully recover from that. And LeBron James came back from that injury in a month and a half. There was no way he was going to look the same for the rest of the season. People forget how good he was playing before that injury. With AD not playing at his best, it was LeBron who was able to lead this team to one of the best records in the league before the All-Star break. By February 14th, they were 21-6, second only to the Utah Jazz at that point. LeBron is still a top 5 player, maybe even top 3, and him having time to recover from that ankle sprain will more than likely get him back to playing at a high level at the start of the season. There's no doubt that the Lakers will be must-see TV as always. Whether you love them or hate them, you will want to see the Lakers play every chance you get. They will be one of the favorites to win the championship this year. They have the superstars, they have the veterans, the young studs, and a great coach to bring home championship number 18 for the city of Los Angeles. I have the Lakers finishing with the 3rd seed with a 53-29 record. They might not win the most games in the West, but they will show every team in the league that they are one of the best. AD needs to be the best version of himself and play motivated. He doesn't need to wait to have a bad game to be aggressive. He needs to be aggressive from the start. LeBron will continue to be one of the best in the league despite a possible drop in his stat line. The Big Three in LA will produce magic for the Lakers, and they will be one of many teams that have a chance to win the title this year.